Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. So I like to take community posts on different issues around the game, and I like to try to come back and at least, tell you my findings as I take the posts. So I took a post about a week ago. I asked, what content do you play the most in the Division 2? I put three options: PvE, PvE, and both. And PvE, not surprisingly, had 84% more, responses. So more people are playing PvE. 5% of people said they play PvP the most, and 11% say they play both. So probably equally. Now, this is basically just opinion, but what I would recommend that you do is come and at least just scroll through some of the comments, and you're going to see that a lot of the people who are playing PvE are not necessarily playing PvE because they prefer PvE that much. They're playing PvE because they're not satisfied with PvP. I mean, look at the comments. PvP is a nightmare. I mean, PvP is just backstabbing. That's basically what it is. PvP is not satisfying the community, and we're seeing this from these comments. And I think this brings me to something where marketing seems to have become somewhat of a weird sleight of hand or bait and switch that developers use to kind of grab people into the division game, if you understand what I mean. So if you go back and look at the Division 2's Dark Zone trailers for the game's, prior release, you're going to see that they did some decent marketing for the Dark Zone for Tom Clancy's The Division 2. I mean, if you think about it, this is a Dark Zone trailer from from a year ago when the game was about to be released, if you understand what I mean. I mean, they did some really, decent marketing, showing, oh, this is what the Dark Zone will be. And so players were coming into this experience expecting, something along the lines of this Dark Zone from the Division 1. Look at this, is the Dark Zone reveal from E3 2015. 1 million views. A lot of people were basically, kind of into this, and people love the concept and its originality and what it was when you actually made your way into the Dark Zone, and how that was a very exciting experience. Now, I have to say though, I still don't believe that the Dark Zone, the PvP in the Division 1 kept the Division 1 alive. I don't think so, but I know people always argue that point. But the thing is, we don't have the data, but at least we have some correlation as to how this has basically moved on to the next game, if you understand what I mean. And so people probably came into the Division 2 thinking that we were going to have a robust Dark Zone PvP experience as well. And many people bought into that idea of the Division 2. And if you think about it, a lot of people have basically, gone into video games with some expectations, and those expectations not being met. And I think over the course of the Division 2, it seems like Massive kind of put down the PvP, or decided to provide very minimal support, very minimal pathway to, developing this experience, as Red Storm basically kind of left the whole, scene, because Red Storm seemed to have been working on this game initially, but then somehow they bounced. And if you think about, how people people constantly expect these things, and development teams eventually change their minds, or development teams go different directions that people can't necessarily come in line with, I think we have a slight problem between developer and gamer expectations. Now, if you go back and look at something else, The Last of Us 2 is another game that I want to basically point out, because that game had a bunch of leaks. And apparently the development team, and not the development team, the writers, because The Last of Us is a story-driven game, and I know it's a different contrast from The Division, it was basically its story that made its strongest point, not the gameplay. The Division 2, the gameplay is one of the strongest gameplays in the world right now for third-person shooters, if not even the best, in my opinion. I know it's a buggy game, but it is one of the best, looter shooter, third-person iterations out there. But if you look at the Last of Us 2, the first game was basically, sold on its story. Story was very good. But then by the second game, the writers decided that they wanted to make a divisive game. This is from the mouth of the writer himself. And if you look at the reviews right now, you can see that there's something going on in the review market. People are reviewing this game with all kinds of high marks and high scores. But then we have a former division agent who has now gone into full-time game, well, kind of partially, full-time game reviewing, and that's SkillUp. He's the only one that has provided, not just him, I would say him and another gamer. I can't remember the name. I actually commented on his comment, but there are only two of them right now on YouTube that have basically contended against this game is perfect mindset that they're putting out there. And I think this is where we kind of, can get carried away and swept up with the wind, because reviews play an influential part. Marketing, advertising, what we see with our eyes can also play kind of a part in, getting us to purchase and make, and buy the game. Because, this Dark Zone trailer that was put there, I think it was just put there just to sell more copies. And the people who are the hardcore PvP players, after buying the game, realized that this Division 2 game was not designated to be a hardcore PvP game. I think they eventually realized that, and people eventually came to this conclusion, saying that the PvE is what they prefer to play. Now, don't get me wrong. There are people who have always played PvP in the game and just decided they're going to shift to PvE. And there are people who've always played PvE in the game and then just decided to just continue to play their PvE and never bother going into the Dark Zone. And I think the developers have seen that the amount of PvP players who wanted to engage in their division PvP figured out that this is not the same and have dropped off and just continue to, service PvE, which is actually very, very, in my opinion, very unfortunate, because this game had somewhat of a more rounded experience with a Division 1 when the PvP was still alive. You could go into the Dark Zone and actually enjoy that experience if you got tired of PvE. People like me didn't really get tired of PvE. In fact, I got tired of PvP more than anything else. If I played PvP for 1 hour, if I played Conflict or Last Stand or something that we had in Division 1, after a few games, I was like, yeah, I'm good. I go play Resistance. I mean, it was just kind of weird because I just never necessarily, we just never really, matched the Division PvP and I. So looking at all of this, I just want to say, this was an unfortunate loss. And from a content creator side, I have to call out, how this development team basically seems to have given up on the PvP ideology and have just marginalized the aspect of the game. And this is coming from somebody who doesn't like PvP at all in Division 2. Now, I can understand many people saying, PvP and PvE, PvP should not be in this game. And if that's the case, that PvP should not be in this game, then I'm surprised why they used it as a marketing tool when they necessarily didn't seem to have a vision for it. Now, take in mind that I also recognize that there will probably be a PvP Dark Zone, expansion, because some people were able to kind of track down voice recordings. Another content creator talked about how this is probably going to be a thing, but I don't know how that's going to advance the PvP of the game, because the problems and the qualms with the PvP of this game are deeply rooted in the mechanics, like gameplay core mechanics. And the person that was actually giving a lot of hope to the PvP community has right now kind of said, I'm no longer going to be talking about the Division 2. I'm working on other things. And that's Frederick Thylander. He's the one that talked about possible changes to movement. He's the one that talked about possible changes to some of the mechanics. And he's no longer even talking about the Division 2 right now. So it's much more of a dire situation for anyone that might be hoping of, for any improvements in PvP. Unless they decide they want to do a year 3, then I think this is probably going to be something that comes back on the table. But if they're not doing a year 3, and that's still even unlikely, because the PvE community is still the one that's, the community that's playing a lot of the, the game right now. So I don't know, man. I think it was a very underhanded thing to have done in the beginning and then not follow through as the game started to progress. So this is an L for Massive just right off the bat, for me, in my opinion anyways. I feel like they can do better and should do better. I know live service games are a pain. Destiny right now is going through a lot of stuff, but like I said, The Division is such a unique game. more dedication needs to be put into this game. The leadership needs to step up their game and ensure that they have, a good reputation, because if they continue like this, these are the things that scar the reputation of a gaming development team. And, these scars, they translate into losses rather than profit. That's just my take on this. Anyways, I want to hear your thoughts. Let me hear what you think in the comment section. Do you think that, it was unnecessary to put PvP in this game at all? Or do you think that it was quite lax or lazy or absolutely fraudulent to not continue with developing PvP in this game and actually making that known up front? I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.